Movies and books were once at the forefront of telling a narrative. However, in 2021, video games have become a playground for storytellers to produce an interactive narrative. Today we see video games with very rich and deep narratives, but in its infancy, video games told simpler narratives that evolved over time. The two games I'll be discussing are Legend of Zelda for the NES and the original Doom. To start with Zelda, Zelda takes the player, Link, across Hyrule, with the main objective of saving Princess Zelda and defeating the evil Ganon. In order to complete this quest, Link must travel through different dungeons and collect different tools to aid him. Link finds a bomb, a bow, and even a boomerang as he progresses through the levels. Each level features a mini monster boss fight at the end. For example, the first level has Link going up against a sea monster-like creature, where level 2 shows him facing a stronger beast that can only be beaten using bombs. This creates a great amount of variety within the gameplay. With its level-like progression system, Zelda has a linear structure type narrative that has very little room for branching off. There are some areas that the player can branch off with, such as the amount of time they spend getting to the next level and exploring Hyrule, and there's also a buy area that the player can use to upgrade their arsenal. Let's talk a little bit about feedback loops. Zelda promotes a positive feedback loop in which the player keeps getting better loot and gear as they progress through the levels. Looking at my map, you can see that The Legend of Zelda has a very simplistic story. And as shown by Table 3 in Barry Epps' essay, Narrative Structures in Computer and Video Games, Part 1, Context, Definitions, and Initial Findings, Zelda only spends about 2 minutes telling the narrative, where the rest is done within the gameplay. Now this is very different compared to the Zelda games of today. Doom is a game that is separated into 3 different episodes: Knee Deep in the Dead, The Shores of Hell, and Inferno. And then there was a 4th episode, Thy Flesh Consumed, that was added in the expanded version of the game, The Ultimate Doom, which is the version I played. Overall, Doom has a very simplistic narrative that shows the player facing off against demons as they progress through military bases and even hell. Doom doesn't really have much of a storyline, and as stated by Jasper Juul in his article, A Clash Between Game and Narrative, quote, "Two of the most popular games in recent years, keep in mind this was written in '98, Doom and Quake, are justly famous for their lack of storylines. The main character, referred to as Doom Guy, is the star of the game. As the player progresses through Doom, they receive many weapons and gear that they can use in order to defeat the boss at the end of each episode. These include a machine gun, a shotgun, a rocket launcher, and a pistol. Players navigate throughout the levels by grabbing different colored keys to open doors. Doom Guy eventually goes through the cyber demon boss and makes his way to the Spider Mastermind and defeats him in hell. The Spider Mastermind is the one behind the attacks on Earth, and this is how the original game ends. As shown by my map for Doom, it's a relatively simple narrative, and this is exactly what Juul stated. Overall, narrative doesn't always have to be fancy, and sometimes can be as simple as level progression. Julius Salus tells us in his slideshow, Game and Narrative, that even games like Tetris have one. As simple as it is, I think that the concept of simplistic narratives is very interesting, as these two games in particular were the building blocks for their respective franchises.